Murali Mandita Karakamalam Munijanamokhanam Yatyasthapadam Vanamala Dharinam Prema Bhakta Mandala Nitya Kirtitam Premika Varadam Ashrayegam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranata Klesha Nashaya Govindaya Namo Sarvatra Govindanama Sankirtanam Govinda Govinda. With the immense grace of our beloved Guru Maharaj, Maharanyam Sri Muralidhara Swamiji, and by the causeless mercy of Sri Madhuri Sakhi Sameta Premika Vrada Thakurji, and on behalf of our Seattle Namadwaar Satsang group, we are doing initially a 2-day discussion on intelligent living. And before we enter into what, how, etc., maybe it is always good to understand some fundamental principles before we even start, like axioms. Before you build theories and theorems, we should be clear on some axioms. And let us create that base. And then we'll take it forward. We just put as a guidance 2 days, but we'll see how it goes. So first, in our Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, they clarify some fundamental principles. When I said principles, it's called Tattvam. Tattvam means things which are in its intrinsic, natural, fundamental state. Tattva. The closest, if you want, as a simile is element. There are a lot of compounds, and when you take the compounds off, you say these are the elements, and these are the fundamental elements in which all these compounds, millions and zillions of compounds are made of in this world. And now I don't know the number. It used to be 108, and now they have made it to 140, 150, I think. And we say these are all the elements. So anything in this world, any material, you can actually split it and say that 1, 2, 3, 4 or many of these fundamental elements only compose that. But if you go a little more deeper into it, then we go to the particle level. Then they say there are 3 particles. Now I don't know how many are there. But when I read physics, basically we talked about 3 fundamental particles. Maybe it is 6 now, I don't know. And they say there is something called negative charge electrons. And then there are protons and neutrons in the nucleus. And now there is all antiparticle on all the other stuff there. And when they go even into the subatomic particles, they talk about 6 types of fundamental particles in which the entire universe is made of. Now we have boiled down the universe to some 6 fundamental principles. So that's what is called Tattva. Likewise, our Sanatana Dharmas also have done a wonderful investigation on what are these fundamental principles, Tattva, which existence is made of, as we know it, physical existence. The beauty with the scientific approach of our Sanatana Dharma, which is slightly different from the West, at least till 50, 60 years back, is it not only included that which is observed as the universe into its fundamental principles, it also included observer and that which aids the observation in defining fundamental principles, right? And for example, if all matter is made up of 5 fundamental elements as per Sanatana Dharma, either it is made of earth, or it has some element of water in it, it has some element of air in it, it has some element of fire in it, it has some element of space in it. Now, what it really means is, anything which is observed is what is the basis for science. Huh? And most of the scientific facts are done with merely two sense organs, which is eyes and ears, you see. So that which you see and hear is what most of the science is made of. But our rishis said, why nature has given us five sense organs? Na? So the fundamental matter should also be classified into five. Huh? That which is seen, so that which gives us this vision, the object which we see, and then there is something which we taste. And so there is an agency of tasting, there is an agency of feeling, there is an agency of seeing and hearing. So when we have five sources of knowledge, when we look around in this universe, our Sanatana Dharma said, then since science is based on facts, facts are nothing but truth distilled through these five sense organs, observations. So matter is also classified as five, you see. And what are those five? We have that which creates a sense of taste, which can be observed by our tongue. And that is what we call as water, or that fundamental element which contributes to taste of things, you see. Fundamental element which contributes to smell of things is earth. The fundamental element which contributes to the touch, feel, very sharp, blunt, smooth, rough, etc. That is what is called air. So when I say air, it's not just this atmosphere. Air means an element which contributes to touch. And then that which contributes to our vision, color, form, etc. is what we call as fire, Agni. And that which contributes to sound is called Akasham, or space, right? So the earth, the final element, has all the five. The water has four. Four means we can touch it, we can taste it, we can see it, and of course there is sound also in water, right? And then it keeps on reducing. And in space, there is no smell, there is no taste, there is no sense of touch, and there is no sight, but there is only a sound which can pass through space, you see. So these are how we classified external objects. But we didn't stop there. Our investigation went a little deeper. It said that which helps us to see, we have one sense organ, right? We call it eyes. And that which helps us to smell, we call it nose. That which helps us to taste, we call it tongue. That which helps us to hear, we call it ears. That which helps us to feel, touch, etc., skin. So these are the five perception, sense organs of perception, which is an input to what we study in this world, right? And then there are five classifications of work we do based on the inputs we do something, output. And those five are called organs of action. We walk, we transport, and we work even when we are stationary. And then we digest and excrete, we procreate, and we speak. These are the common five actions which we can be done as an exertion of will. When I want to talk, I will talk. When I want to walk, I will walk. When I want to do something, I do something, etc. So this is the five organs of action. So you have five objects of the world, the five fundamental elements in which everything is made of externally. How do you know it is there? I know. How do you know it? I see it, I hear it, I smell it, I taste it, I touch it. Five organs of perception. And the actions we do are the five organs of action. And how do I perceive all this? You see, I have what is called as an internal organ, which is equivalent of ICU. IC, not the ICU which we are hearing right now. The circuit unit you have now in the laptop, which is the brain of the laptop, you say. So that which helps me to act, that which controls my perception, and that which makes me understand there is a world around me is what is called as an internal organ. So in the internal organ helps us to coordinate between these five perception, the input organs, and the 5 acting organs, right? So that internal organ is called antakaranam. Now, the topic which we are trying to discuss today is about intellect and mind. So we should know this role of intellect and mind in the grand scheme of things. Otherwise, we would have our own definitions of what intellect is, what mind is, and get into arguments. So I'm trying to put some basic definitions because this is not a lecture. This is not a pravachan to say, Rumalandu sir. This is something we all need to understand together, like friends we are discussing. Which means instead of me talking to you, I would request you all to come by my side and see the things one way so that we have some meaningful understanding of this discussion. See? And so it's called antakaranam, an internal organ. And this internal organ is what is called as mind stuff, if I can use that word. That's what most of the Western translators use for antakaranam, mind stuff. And mind stuff itself has 4 divisions as per our view of the so-called mind. There is something called manas. There is something called buddhi. There is something called chittam. There is something called ahankaram. 4 things are there. When I say my internal organ, which processes all the inputs through my eyes, nose, tongue, skin, ears, and which generally gives the command for my external organs, which walk, speak, work, etc. So that internal organ has 4 functions. Now, Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi very beautifully says, whether you call it mind, whether you call it intellect, whether you call it chitta, I need to tell you what chitta means, and whether you call it ahankara, whatever you say, all the 4 are fundamentally the same. It gets the name when the fundamental agency does a particular function. And an example given is, when air goes around in a powerful way, we call it as a cyclone. Here you call it a twister, you see, or you call it a tornado, right? If the air is not going round and round, but is going in one direction with tremendous force, we call it storm, you see. And if the air is gently, beautifully, blowing with a little coolness, we call it breeze. And when the air is still and not too much movement, we call it stuffy. All the 4 are same stuff, you see. And depending on how the movement of the air is, depending on the function that air does, we name it differently. You get this right? This is how we in India define it. So here, manas, by definition in our Sanatana Dharma, is sankalpa vikalpamatmakam manaha. That which constantly thinks, saying, shall I do that? Shall I do this? Is it that? Is it this? Vikalpamna, doubting. Vikalpamna, trying to figure out. Doubt doesn't mean suspicion, all that. I'm trying to figure out. I see something standing straight. Then I say, is it a mic stand? Is it just a normal stand? Is it a barrier? What is it? Mind is acting. You see? When it's trying to figure out something. So it is saying, I shall do this, I shall do that. Maybe I should do that. Why did he say like that? All these things are mind working. Right? Sankalpam, vikalpam. Sankalpam, we all know. Even expecting something, mind does. I have done that. What will happen tomorrow? Mind. Sankalpam also means expectation of a result of something which I've already done or I'm doing. So the mind is the same internal organ which is working in figuring out stuff or in doubting something, questioning something. And the buddhi, the closest to the word buddhi is intellect in English. Buddhi means nischayatmakam. It is the one which finally comes to a determination. It determines. Nischayam. Oh, this is that. Idam itam is buddhi. So when I finally look and then I come to a conclusion, oh, that's not a mic stand. It is not a walking stick. It is a small pillar to create a barrier for the Sannadi out here. No, buddhi. Nischayam atmakam. And then there is something called chittam. Chittam serves the purpose of recalling from memory what we already know. It's very important, isn't it? For me to even determine this is just a barrier, I must have seen a barrier, or I must have assumed about a barrier before. So I recall my past, I recall my memory, I recall my learning, and then I come to a determination that yes, it is a walking stick. Why? Because I've seen it before. Or I know the characteristics of a walking stick, and it is fitting all the characteristics. So it is a walking stick. So that is my buddhi working. How did the buddhi work? Using a thing called chittam. And very roughly put, chitta means, or chittam means, that which is the function of recalling the memory of what I already know. Finally, there is something called ahankaram. Ahankaram means it attaches the sense of identity of me to all these things. I am seeing this. This is mine. It is not mine. Even when somebody says this is hers, basically the first fundamental thought I am thinking, it's not mine. And then the next thought is, then whose is it? Oh, it is hers. This is how we think it seems. First, I thought it attaches what I see with the mind and with the I. For example, whatever I speak, whatever I think, I'm always connected with it, even though it is about a third person thing. Somebody who is tall is walking down the road. No, I am not involved in that at all. It is, but this observation I do is not like in an open ground I shouted Rama and the word is somehow mixed with the space without creating any ripple at all. So when I see something there is this portion of this internal organ called ahankara, which attaches all my observation to me. And that is the reason why we have this internal organ a little complicated. And then, so there is no fight between intellect, mind, and all that. That's where I'm coming to. You don't think heart is here, head is there, etc. As per our system of understanding the internal organ, there are two functions which are done, but the basic stuff is one. Chittam, buddhi, manas, ahankaram, all the four are like this wind blowing slowly or going round and round or blowing with tremendous force or keeping quiet and etc. So here, the whole idea is we have these four capabilities. Now, unless I know that this is how it works, how can I start working on it? You see, that is the reason why first we should know the basic tattva. This is what the tattva is. The mind is always sankalpam, shall I do that? Shall I do that? And mind is the one which always gets, the first trigger of influence. You see, I see 5 people wearing one type of shirt. Then the mind will say, shall I also wear that? You see, now it's mind working. If we have this capability of buddhi practice sharpened, the buddhi would ask the mind, why should you wear it? Because 5 people wear it, you also need to buy it. Is that a need there? What if 5 people are wearing like that? Yesterday they wore something else. Tomorrow they are going to wear something else. Obviously, when it is so different yesterday, today, tomorrow, it is different between these 5, these 5, these 5. Why should I be like one of that 5? This is how the buddhi works. Then the same internal organ is taking a different function and it is trying to make sure that this mind, which is easily influenced, is having a small check and balance. So there are not 2 agencies there. The same agency is doing both the functions. And since the whole thing is having ahankara or I as this background, I have this function and that function as a witness. And then depending on which capability I go with, my actions, organs of actions, organs of perceptions, they are all guided by that, you see. So the moment organs of actions are guided only by a capability of mind alone, then we have a very volatile life, you see, where I see something, I want to do it, because there is no check and balance there. Even though the facility is there, I am not turning to that chapter. Imagine these 4 chapters of a book, and I am reading only 1 chapter. I am completely neglecting another chapter. I am not getting the full picture. I need to get the full picture now before I can act. And that is the reason why we thought we will try to explore a little bit about how do I harmonize or synchronize or ensure the capability of me, the internal organ, to work as buddhi or intellect is a, well, yeah, is the closest. How do I use that capability as much to make sure this lovely capability or potential called the mind is not dragging me to places where I don't need to be or I don't want to be. You see what I'm saying? That's what is the intellect. And here the beauty is intellect is the one to convince and rein the mind. The mind has to be reined. Why? Because it's constantly moving here and there. Sanchalam cha manaha. He says now, or Partha says Bhagavan to Bhagavan, that my mind is so much sanchalam. It is moving here and there. Sometimes it says things, when I see something, I feel like doing it. When I see something else, I feel like doing it. How do I rein in the mind? And the Bhagavan said, if in a path of sadhana, you have to rein the mind yourself. Because I have given you the capability to rein it. You need to strengthen it. The example given mostly by the Western scholars are very good example. For example, there is something called dystrophy. We all know what dystrophy means. Suppose I don't use my hand at all for say 5 days, 6 days. Over time, even though muscles are there, slowly the muscles start getting wasted. I used to lift 10 kilos because I am not using it. I am losing it. No, I'm not exercising my muscles this. Likewise, if we don't exercise this intellect buddhi muscles for a long time, over time, this buddhi muscles become very weak. And then the mind, which is constantly jumping here and there, like a monkey, that becomes very strong now, you see. And then what happens is, we decide something out of this little influence, and then we act something, and then we repent, yet we don't have the power because we have not exercised buddhi at all, not much. Again we go back, repeat it, then feel very depressed. Which is depressed now? Mind is only depressed. Why am I like this? Etc. You see. And it is the mind which is jumping there. And since mind is the controller now, and the buddhi did not rein it, it is resulted in action. And once that action gave us some very bad consequence, the same mind feels very sad. And the same mind says, maybe I shouldn't do like that. But then it repeats the same thing again and again. Reason being, we have not exercised a muscle called intellect or a buddhist muscle. How do I exercise this buddhist muscle? You see, very simple. You can exercise the buddhist muscle in 2 ways. Any habit can be influenced either by changing the trigger for that action or by changing the consequence of the action, right? That's how you change habits now. Suppose I work on the consequence, which means if imagine the mind to be like an errant child, our own daughter or a son. The child, if it is doing something very childish or something which is not very good for the child on the long run, right? You can rein in this working of a child in 2 ways. One is by showing the child that there is a punishment or a reward system in place. If we actually put that in place, the child understands, if I do this, this is the consequence. Out of the fear of punishment or out of a greed for a pleasure it gets from a reward, a child may try to do something, you see. But there won't be a fundamental change in the character of the child. Only the behavior is changed a little bit for a small time. The better way for bringing the child to the right path would be, I think, IMHO, would be to actually show the purpose and convince the child that this is for your own good, and this type of a habits, this type of a behavior will take you there. And when you tell that to the child may not understand it fully. But then at least one person will sink in that. So constantly by reinforcing that, there is a chance that even if there is at some point of time, there will be 1% improvement, 5% improvement, 10% improvement. You see? And that's how we slowly start doing the convincing intellect to convince the mind. Mind is a child, intellect is a parent now. And it is convincing the mind, why do you want to do that? Now for that you have to exert so much. What is that you're going to get out of it? Huh? Why should we actually be influenced by what others do? And that's the convincing we have to do. It will be a little more healthy way to convince it instead of saying, if you ever do that, I'm going to self-inflict punishment on myself. Won't work, you see. And that is the reason why once we convince something with a grander purpose in mind, intellect muscles are exerted a little bit, which is the reason why we should be clear about a purpose, you see. And that purpose may come from outside to start with. You may read some books, you may listen to some very influential people, you may listen to some mentors. They may initiate a little bit of a trigger about purpose from outside. But after that, it is this intellectual muscle building which should constantly remind us of the purpose. This is the purpose. Is it in line with the purpose? If not, why should I do it? Even if you yield to the force of habit and do something which is not optimal for my journey of purpose, still we are exercising the intellectual muscle, isn't it? We are exercising the muscle of buddhi, isn't it? Slowly, it helps buddhi to become sharper and stronger so that at least 5%, 10%, 15% improvement is possible. And over time, we will have a very strong buddhi in place. Adam buddhir balam. Buddhir balam. And once that buddhi is really strengthened, then we can be the master of our own self. You see, where we understand this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do. And this is what is called Shama and Dhamma, controlling our senses and controlling the mind, which in turn controls its senses. So that is the reason why when we are influenced, we want to imitate. Any form of external imitation is always dangerous. Even with great Mahatmas, not worth imitate. But we can be inspired. I'll give you an example. Suppose somebody wants to do something very good. Okay. They find that an organization, a spiritual organization, has donated 2 lakhs or 20 lakhs to the Prime Minister's fund there. Then immediately we can't imitate an organization. So since they do like that, let me also collect 20 lakhs and give. You can't. Trying to match what a big person or a big organization does, and I also want to do it, is imitation. But saying that this organization has contributed its might to this goal, and I feel inspired by it, what can I do to contribute my might to this purpose is inspiration. Because you have taken a guidance, you have taken a direction, and we are not trying to copy an action. That is the reason why many Mahatmas don't encourage their close set of disciples to dress like them or talk like them or imitate like them, because we end up with only the externals and we are empty inside. And that is the reason why they say that be inspired but not be influenced. The moments we are influenced, it shows that the mind is weak. What does a weak mind mean? A weak mind basically means that the buddhi is not strong enough. So weak mind, weak intellect, weak buddhi. You see, when you say intellect, then don't imagine the Mensa test and all that, all separate stuff, you see. So here, I think when we want to be convincing ourselves on something, that's the whole idea of intellect, convincing, constantly reinforcing the quality of that. How do I reinforce? Is go to the details. I'll give you an example. How do we convince ourselves with the details would be, suppose you want to sit down in a place and do japa for 5 minutes. That's what we want to do, and that's our plan. Generally, the mind would always want to do something very big. From tomorrow, I'm going to do 10 hours of dhyana. That's how we want to start. It's called Arambha Shuras, you see. People who are very, very raring to go. And over time, slowly the enthusiasm dwindles. Rather than that, it is always good to have a small target and slowly build on the targets. It's called, I think, in America, atomic habits. Start small, keep building it instead of trying to start big with a big blast. I want to start now. So suppose it is, I want to sit down and do some japa, Mahamantra japa, for example. and I'm not used to it. It's a new habit, right? So I have heard a story from our Swamiji or somebody saying Dhruva did penance in the forest. That's just a word, na? But if you want to strengthen your buddhi muscles, then we have to start looking at the details. What is a forest? What does it entail? It means that Dhruva is sitting in the midst of nowhere, and even if one mosquito comes and bites us, we feel very, very upset. Imagine the amount of insects he must have been lived with. Imagine the wild animals there. Imagine the distractions. Imagine the mosquitoes. Imagine all that pain he must have undergone. Once you go to that detail, your inspiration will be stronger. Otherwise, Dhruva meditated in the forest is merely a news item. Like that, when we are sitting and you want to be inspired by Dhruva, go to the detail. That's why we need to listen. Shravanam, and then only rest comes. And listen not only with your ears, listen with your whole being. Then you will start picturizing and you will start understanding its details. The Dhruva, 5-year-old boy, for days together sat in the same place. He must have got cramps. Wouldn't have not got cramps. He wouldn't have been, assailed by insects. When we say Narada Maharishi's Kripa protected him, it means it gave him the balam in his buddhi to tide over such a doesn't mean he ensured that there was no mosquito biting him. You see, you have to undergo all that. When there is Guru Kripa means strengthening the buddhi to overcome those. Otherwise, what penance is there? So here the beauty is when we have to think harder, we have to think little more deeper. And then what happens is our buddhi gets more and more inspiration. And it is always better to get inspiration from people who are less privileged, yet worked hard to attain what they wanted in life, rather than looking at people who are more privileged. And if a comparison can be both ways, na? So when we think, for example, if I am in spiritual life, I am not working anywhere. Our Swamiji has told me, look here, at least other people are going 9-to-5 job, and they are, working hard for their money, and they are earning their livelihood. They are doing some of Krishna's work, but now you have quit your job, which means you have to be far more accountable to divinity than them, which means every second of your life should not be wasted. It should not be frittered away. So keep that in the mind, because many people keep asking me, shall I quit job? Shall I quit job? Either mind or valaya, buddhi valaya, I don't know. But you need to think over it. You see, quitting the job or getting into spirituality is not escapism, isn't it? That's a different topic Swamiji has given. He'll talk about it in 2-3 weeks from now. But then the reason why I'm bringing it in is the buddhi has to work to convince, saying that, look here, these people are struggling. They have somebody to report to in the office. Some XYZ is the boss. Bhagavan has completely cut all our bonds of all this. And now we are now fully free from all this other stuff. And people are feeding me. How much grateful I should be with people who feed me, who give me a roof above me. And time given by Bhagavan, it should be used very usefully. Otherwise, I am a drogi, na? Idallam convinced. Then, at least if I don't suddenly become a Mahatma tomorrow, at least that will keep hitting me, na? Whenever I try to get diverted and try to fritter away my time. This buddhi will come and say, look here, this is your job, this is your purpose. Why are you now getting? This is how you strengthen the buddhi. And we have to do chintan. So I look at all the people. There are people who are less advantaged than me, people who can't walk properly, people who can't do pradakshanam properly, people who can't do even namaskaram properly, people who can't talk properly, and people who can't think properly, and people who can't see properly. So when I'm seeing properly, I have to start using my buddhi muscles, strengthen it by saying, he has given me this capacity to see properly, use it properly. Neither should I not use it or lose it, or nor should I abuse it. You see? So when this is how you strengthen your buddhi, vichara. And then whether it gives fruits immediately or not, you can see improvement. You can see there is a check and balance at least. That's why they say, manam pona pokla, our action should not go. We should not take the mind and keep going wherever it is going. And the way to do that is by actually using two things. My purpose, this is my purpose. That's the direction of my buddhist exercise. Second is looking around. observing. Pariksha lokan karma chitanne sollirken. Our Shastras say best guru is your intellect and what you see around. See around, look around. You will learn a lot from them. And don't just look, you see, you observe, and you learn. And use our little vicharam to look at how the world is. And then ask yourselves, am I doing justice to what is being given to me? How can I be a little better? Not immediately from tomorrow, nothing at all. How can I be a little better? How can I spend a little more time in my purpose? Since I took my example, I'm giving you spiritual purposes. You can define your own purpose. Shastras are there to help you define that purpose, you see. But then the decision has to come from within all of us. Take the right example. Take disadvantaged people and get inspired by them. If you ask me a question, why should I take that? Why should I not take somebody born with a silver spoon? He is very happy, I am not. Nah. I am trying to show you a way to be peaceful and go in the path of progress. If we want to take examples which will make us more depressed, you can be my guest. You see, the best way to be depressed in a lighter vein, they say, is in your kannadi, in your glass. There is somebody called Mr. Universe. I'm talking about boys first. Mr. Universe, they'll flex the muscle and all that. In your bathroom mirror, stick a photo of Mr. Universe. Daily look at yourself and Mr. Universe for 5 minutes. You don't need any other medicine to become depressed. You see, adinala, when you look like that and start comparing with something better, and then I feel depressed. Rather, I would need to think, I have a body, I need to keep it fit for my purpose here. And there are so many people who don't have their bodily functions working properly. So I should not waste it. I should not fritter it. I should not abuse it. So how do I use it in the right way so that I can attain the purpose? When a person who lost both the limbs with metal limbs can run 100 meters in 15 seconds, why can't I walk for half an hour daily? This is how you push yourself. This is how we flex our buddhi muscles so that we can rein in the mind. Once we rein in the mind, then our decisions are measured. We may make mistakes, but the buddhi will also tell us, this is the mistake I made, let me not repeat it in future. And that is the reason why we need to flex these little buddhi muscles and looking at the reality and not be in the fanciful world, and understanding the reality, absorbing the reality is what is called as vivekam. You see, you have to look at reality. You have to check your mind every now and then. For example, a typical example in India, I'm sure it is there in US also. Typically, when there are a lot of movie buffs in India, and I have been friends with some of my classmates who are real movie buffs. They know very well that a person who is acting in that movie, that hero, is acting for money. Everybody knows that well now. He's acting for money. And what he is doing in the screen is acting. We know that also. Yet, when we keep on seeing a stereotypical heroes movies again and again and again, we start thinking about the characteristics of the hero himself, that person who acts in that movie itself, to be like that. So tomorrow when somebody tells that the one whom we worship as hero has done something dastardly like that, then we think, how can he be? He never acted like that in the movie. We are not even willing, knowing very well he is only an actor there. I idolize that hero so much that in real life and in this real life, you see, we don't see the difference. And I told that once to our Swamiji. Swamiji smiled and said, that is why when even people who see it in movies that it's only acting that it is like that, they take that for real. Why won't they take this world for real? Why won't they not take it? When we willfully want to believe that is what he is, why will Bhagavan not fool us with all this Maya around us, you see? And that is why we need to use buddhi. We have to be very clear. When the mind is swayed, and understand this is only a role, this is only a small thing. Is the person who is acting is not the person which we see in the screen. Simple thing, even that vivekam people miss. So easy way is see reality, differentiate reality from imagination. We imagine, we know we imagine. Many times we want to hold on to our imagination. And see, in mathematics, there is something called real numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, X, Y, Z, all real numbers. And then there is something called imaginary numbers. Huh? And that is root of -1, square root. It's called an imagine. The square root of -1 is called I. And it's an imaginary number. So there is an equation where real numbers and imaginary numbers interplay. You see, A plus IB equals C. You know what that equation is called? Complex equation. The complexity in mathematics comes when reality and imagination coexist and interplace. You see, if it is purely a real equation, no problem. Purely imaginary equation, for that person, no problem. You see, but then when there is reality and imaginary coming together in an equation, it makes it very complex. The best way for us is, unfortunately, we can't get rid of the imagination, strengthen the real portion by vicharam. Vicharamna, questioning, by understanding, seeing, and determining, and realizing. You see, and that's how it works. You see, and why we are spending so much time in this is, nowadays, jnanam does not mean information. You can get any information about anything in the internet. It's a boon, it's a bane. It's a bane because along with the genuine information comes this all sorts of rubbish information. It's all there now. And the typical example is of all our WhatsApp messages. We get incredible messages. I have at least seen 2,000 cures for COVID virus in WhatsApp. Drink this rasam, drink that tree, and wash with this soap, etc. We all know. So now, in future, not even now, the real mark of intelligence would be to how do I wade through this information and misinformation, genuine news and fake news, and the reality and imagination, which both pose as if with their reality. Now my vivekam is only in understanding how do I make sense, how do I not be swayed by, or how do I not be led astray by information without using my intellect. Buddhi use panna. You see what I'm saying? And it's more so for us. You shouldn't get me wrong. As a brother, I'm telling you, the Sanatana Dharma's greatness in repair, lot of rubbish information comes in. And when I question it, people think, why you are not even patriotic to your own dharma and all that. No, I'm patriotic. That's why I want to make sure. There was even one news item which came even in papers, that there is this center for Shanishwara Bhagavan in Tamil Nadu, near Kumbhakonam. And that they say exactly above that, satellites spend 8 seconds, they stop and then move on. And it was a news item. It came in WhatsApp, some Tamil paper put it. And all of them were gaga. And some of them said, see the greatness of our Sanishwara Bhagavan's temple there. It's a great temple, no doubt about it. You see? But then when they said that, I asked them, where did you get this news? And some of my friends in Satsang itself were very upset. Why you don't even have that faith? I said, I have faith in stuff. But in news items, I want proper validation. Tell me, is it validated? They said it has come in a paper. Doesn't mean that. So we actually called up our Satsang person in ISRO. It's the equivalent of NASA in India. And that person laughed out aloud. I didn't call him. I made him call him. You see? He said, இப்படிதான் கேட்டார் தமிழ்ல, சார் நீங்களா படிச்சவங்க தானே அப்படின்னு கேட்டார். That person is actually MEd. You see? And he says, நீங்களா படிச்சவங்க தானே. Satellites are supposed to be geostationary. They are supposed to be in the same place only. That's the best. Then he came with a very red face. What did he say? I asked him. He had a little mustache. So, mud touch. He's saying, may not be true. Do you want me to talk to him? I said, okay, it is not true. Okay, leave it. The mind wants to believe it now. Because I love my Sanatan Dharma. Any news item which actually adds to its greatness, I want to believe. Nothing wrong in wanting to believe. That's what mind will do. But the buddhi should also. So even though I want to believe, is it true? That's how I strengthen the real portion of the complex equation, because I can't do away with the imaginary portion until I become a jnani. You see, Shiyante sarva samshaya drishta evatmanishwari. All the samshayam and imagination, etc., won't go until I become a jnani. But for that, for me to live a proper sane life, intelligent life, before I get there, is to strengthen my buddhi, where I see myself. I think it's called meta thinking or something. In India, it's simply called awareness. You see, I am aware of my own mind's working. Who is aware? That part of my internal organ which is watching this is also buddhi. And it says that because I am a Hindu, I love to believe all these little fables they talk about greatness of Hinduism. I understand my weakness there. And the buddhi tells me, don't make it worse. Suppose I publish it in my website, and some person who is, already a skeptic, and he proves it's wrong, then I'm actually doing more injustice to society by publishing something which is not true. And that is the reason why we need a buddhi, because the mind would want to believe stuff. But then the buddhi is required to ask a simple question: is it real? How do you know? You see, and not for insignificant things. At least for significant things, we should ask that question. And that's how, to start with, we can, with our buddhi, try to rein in the mind so that we are inspired by the mind, no doubt. But then how I take the inspiration to execution without the loss of enthusiasm, without disappointment, etc. The buddhi does the actual uh, quantum of what do I do next type of a purpose, and also the direction I need to take. And I do what is called as a due diligence with my buddhi, you see. And that is the reason why buddhi always brings in an element of practicality. It's very important. And practicality means understanding my own limitations and yet not be bound by it. Limitations is a limitation of the past, of course. And buddhi would say, this is where I want to go. I want to do Mahamantra chanting for 8 hours a day, no doubt. Then the buddhi asks, how much have you done yesterday? 2 minutes. Day for yesterday, 1 minute. And you want to go to 8 hours? Do you want to take the plunge now? Can we try it for 5 minutes? This is how a parent will tell the child. The child suddenly wants to be a doctor tomorrow. Then say, can you finish your alphabets first? You see. And then we go to letters, words, then sentences, then we will go later. That's why you take, instead of disappointing the child, instead of trying to discourage the child, a buddhi, a mother, will tell the child, next, next, next. And our buddhi should be the mother for this child called mind, which will always tayatakan buddhikam, you see. And for that, the buddhi will say, this is what you need to go. I'm here to help you. You see, I want you to go there. But if you do this, you'll never get there. You will only be restless. Your energy is now frittered off. The buddhi says, take small steps. Take this. And inspire yourself. Convince yourself why you want to do it. Do it for the right reason. Do it for a healthy reason. Many people want to do it because I want to prove myself. That's a very wrong reason. You see, the moment you think, this is how I prove myself by trying to do that, over time, I lose my self-worth. Over time, when things don't go my way, then I've caught myself into something called personalization. I'll talk more about it tomorrow. There are 3 major problems if the mind is not reined by buddhi, especially during the wake of challenges. Number 1 is called permanence. Mind will always feel suddenly disappointed. It's always like that. Second thing is called permeance. Permeance means when I don't do something in one area, I think I am poor in all areas. Suppose I go to a Veena class and I'm not very good in Veena. Suddenly I feel very bad and say, I think I'm a failure. And you are a good mathematician, you are an excellent person, people like you, you talk well, all the other roles you are playing very well. There is only one role which you have not played properly because it's suboptimal. Does not permeate into other roles which you play. Personalization means self-blame, which is a big problem for us to lead an intelligent life. So these 3 things we'll talk about it tomorrow. But today, the major message which we are discussing right now, then we have some questions here. Some are a little semi-spiritual questions. We'll anyway address that also. And the idea here today is understanding that tattva-wise, there is an internal organ, and that internal organ does 4 functions. Depending on what function it does, it is called by different names as per Indian way of working. And of course, these internal organs may have right center, left center in the brain. I don't know. This is all physiology. But I'm talking about the basic principles of how my organs of action or perception work, what controls it. So the mind is constantly questioning, moving, thinking, this, that, etc. Sankalpam, I shall do that. What happens if I do this, etc. Buddhi is nischayam atmakam. It says determination. This is what it is. Chittam is a function of memory which is drawn by the buddhi whenever it is required for determination. And ahankaram is that principle which attaches the identity I with all this which is happening. You see, we take it for granted, but they have kept it as a separate tattva because spiritually we need to transgress that also. So that is the reason why ahankara is separate. And buddhi needs to constantly watch the mind. And that's what we called as a person who is a reflective person, a person who does meta thinking, a person who is grounded, etc. means that the buddhi is exercised well, because when the mind is going here and there, the buddhi is there to tell the mind, this is where you need to go, these are the next steps. And this is the reason why you want to go there, you see, and not for a wrong reason, so that we don't feel frustrated. And that is the reason why we need to have this buddhi muscles well exercised. How do we exercise it? Chintanam, vicharam. Vicharam na reflecting. So easiest way to reflect these things is to ask, is this true? Why should I do that? And where do I want to go? What is my purpose? And a purposeless life would make mind like four horses drawing a chariot in four different directions. Problem. But if there is a purpose, you have a road. And then the horses need to be, you have to bridle it so that you know where to go, when to stop, when to make it run. And buddhi does the job of it as per Bhagavad Gita, as per Kathopanishad. And that is the first important step we need to take to synchronize our intellect with the mind. And inspiration is good. Imitation may not be very optimal for us in our journey. And inspiration comes from vicharam. Inspiration comes from detailing. Inspiration comes from thinking hard about something, you see. And thinking hard about something and trying to cut through possibly the various layers of non-reality and understanding this should be the real stuff there. And working on it is what intellect is supposed to do. And vivekam, or what we call as discrimination, basically means seeing reality, understanding reality, and accepting reality currently, you see. Accepting reality currently. And I can be a better person tomorrow, but I need to know where I am today. Nothing wrong. Buddhi will tell us, this is what I have been till now, and suddenly I want to go there. Don't be in a hurry. There is enough time. Let us slowly ramp it up. And a buddhi is required. Otherwise, the mind will always try mostly to jump around something which may not be very achievable immediately. And it wants to immediately do that. And then it doesn't taste success. It then becomes disappointed, bitter, etc. Buddhi is there to tell the mind, I'm here to support you. And this is the steps we take. This is the reality check for us. And let us take it slowly, step by step. And let us first strengthen the buddhi by actually telling the mind that this is the reason why you need to do it. Constantly convince it, like a parent convincing a child. Result may not come immediately, but we have a system of guidance of the mind in place. I'm exercising the right muscle. I may not be able to lift 10 kilos now, but it is better than 3 kilos now. I will slowly make it 3.5, 4, 4.5. So that when I have to lift 10 kilos, I am in the path of strengthening muscles to do the job. So we'll see that today. And I just wanted to take one idea of how do we use buddhi to convince and guide the mind so that we lead a life which is in direction of the path which leads to the purpose which we have defined. And the path is also determined by values which the buddhi has determined. And the buddhi is there as a guide so that the actions, the behaviors, our habits are all harnessed to take us in the right path towards the right purpose. Sadguru Maharaj ki jai. I got one question from Seattle. I got the first question from Seattle. During this pandemic situation, I got to hear people saying this is happening because of not following dharma. They explain what is dharma from their own perspective. Some being very conservative. What is dharma? According to me, dharma is not to hurt others' feelings and being forgiving. Is there anything more to it? Okay. I think the question actually is that we have a challenge here as a humankind here, a pandemic situation. And many people keep saying that it's because we have not followed dharma. That's why we have this. And some of them explained in their own perspective, which is very conservative. Okay. And what is dharma? Dharma is don't hurt others' feelings and being forgiving. Is there anything more to it? Okay. First of all, suppose I'm undergoing a personal suffering. I have a problem. Technically speaking, the problem is there because it is caused. And Sanatana Dharma says that we cause our own problems, no doubt about it. As you sow, so you reap. Most of the dharmas would say that because it makes sense also, cause and effect. So when I am in that problem, I would personally not think about what Papa I did for me to get this problem. I'll never think right now. Right now I have to think, how do I get out of this problem first? Mahabharata says that if you are in trouble, forget everything else. Come out of it first. Then you can do all the analysis. And now, instead of an individual level, the question is about collective level, saying that, generally the world is not following dharma, so we have a pandemic. No doubt about it, you see. Let me tell you, when we say dharma, we add a religious color to it. We should, but we need not also. For example, if you are a believer in global warming, which we take for granted in India, but here I know some people don't believe in it. A global weirding, if you want, if not warming. Many people say winters are colder. It has become weird now, you see. Then dharma is, how do I reduce my carbon footprint? Would you deny that I have this global warming because global weirding or whatever you call it, because people did not respect and follow some basic tenets of ecological balance, right? It's a dharma. And it is far beyond not hurting others' feelings and being forgiving. It's a very good dharma for me personally. Dharma has many levels. First level of dharma is called samanya dharma, which means a common dharma for everybody. And then there is a social dharma, there is a family dharma, there is an occupational dharma, there is a collective dharma of the entire humankind. Everything is there. Dharma is multi-layered, sukshma. The path of dharma is very subtle, says Mahabharata. Path of dharma is very subtle. So what looks like dharma now may not be dharma tomorrow. What is dharma for somebody may not be dharma for somebody else. So dharma is vast. But this dharma, not to hurt others' feelings and being forgiven, absolutely is dharma also. But that is not just dharma. Na? If I'm not hurting others' feelings and I'm being forgiving, can I stop global warming? You see, for example, I need to do something beyond that also. I need to understand some things. I need to be aware. I need to be based in reality. Of course, there are some real dilemmas even in ecological problems. It's economy versus conservation. You see, I have to work something out now for that. Likewise, there is no doubt. Dharma, you know what dharma really means? Dharma in Sanskritam has many meanings. That which holds everything together is also dharma. That which is the nature is also the nature is dharma. Quality of something is also called dharma. For example, it is the dharma of the flower to be fragrant. Adoda dharma. Dharma na adoda quality. Substance and its quality is also called dharmi and dharma. So there is also a connection between inner nature and outer nature. There is no doubt about all this. And such global scale issues happen obviously because of dharma. Obviously. And it has nothing to do with you and me alone. It's a global issue. So it's a global dharma issue, no doubt about it. But instead of asking those questions, I would rather ask, what do I do right now? You see, how do I repair it right now? And what do I set right for this not to repeat? I think most of the global brains are coming together to define a simple Laukika Dharma to make sure. I have heard some of the experts standing at the podium of White House saying maybe we should never shake hands again in future, you see. So they are redefining Dharma now in a way. Will it solve the problem? I don't know. But people are actually thinking about it, you see. And if you want a religious answer to that, the Kali Yuga Dharma, if you ask me, is Nama Sankirtan. And the more we do it, all the other Dharma will be set right. Does it mean that I won't be aware of what is happening? No, not at all. My inner Dharma I will protect by Nama Sankirtan. My outer Dharma I will protect by service to humankind, understanding environment better, understanding global health better, understanding ecology better, and do my bit in reducing the carbon footprint. You see, in our Dharma, in our Sanatana Dharma, it is said, Mahapapam, if you pollute a pond, if you mix excreta in the pond, Mahapapam. Idella yen Dharma potrukkunna, it is Laukika Dharma. Because if you pollute a pond, more will be affected. If there is an epidemic, guess who is going to get next? You. So the law of reciprocity works very well in Dharma also. So Dharma is far bigger than just thinking I'll be nice, I'll be cool, I'll be forgiving. That's a very important aspect of Dharma, but that's not just Dharma. There are a lot of other observations of Dharma. It keeps changing from place to place, time to time. So the minimum Dharma we can have is to understand the origin of this pandemic. And if it is a source is very clearly identified, I think the best way is to try to make amends so that such things are read across and we don't do such things in future, you see. And of course, there is Dharma is more, there is far, far more to Dharma. And the simplest principle or the preamble of Dharma is do unto others what you want others to do to you. That's the fundamental golden rule of any Dharma, be it Christianity or Hinduism or Islam. The fundamental Dharma is you don't do things to others which you don't want to be receiving, reciprocity. The fundamental preamble. I don't want people to rob my possessions. I'll feel bad if I lose something. So you don't rob others. I don't want my water to be polluted. So you don't pollute any water. You see? And all this. I don't want people to lie to me. So you don't lie to people. It's all reciprocity. No? And that is the fundamental Dharma, says Mahabharata. Vedavyasa Bhagavan says that. And Dharma, the Anushtana, the actual execution of Dharma is far bigger. And you and me, we can now do as much possible support to people whom we can support. We can at least be a part of not spreading it more by, of course, the simple, now sitting in the home, don't go outside, na dharma. We feel ourselves obliged to follow the Dharma. When the experts said, don't go out, don't spread the virus, you can be a passive spreader of virus, asymptomatic and all that. And I follow it. That's also Dharma. Maybe medical Dharma, right? So yes, if we don't follow Dharma, there are repercussions, no doubt about it. This pandemic could very well be because of some Dharma not being followed. It may not be even religious Dharma. Maybe somebody did not follow proper sanitation or sanitary conditions in a market. Who knows? You see, Dharma to be clean, because Dharma has 4 legs. First is truth, which you talked about. Second is daya, which is don't hurt feelings and being forgiving. And third thing is called penance. Control as much of your sense organs possible. Do what is only needed, and don't give rise to too much of loose ends in executing stuff through the sense organs. Tapas, Indriya, Nigraham. And the fourth one is called dhanam, be charitable. The fourth one is called saucham, be clean. Saucham is there. Na? So this whole pandemic came because one fundamental leg of dharma called purity, called sanitation, cleanliness was not maintained. You see, possible. And so dharma is bigger, of course. And such pandemics may come because of lack of dharma, of course. Whether it is tornadoes, etc., we all know. Now science is explaining how dharma is influencing all these things. Each of us bought a car. Each of us added to the carbon footprint. Each of us bought this plastics. It is creating a lot of havoc. Na? So each of us have a role to play in that whole dharma thing there. Na? The overall picture of global ecological crisis you are all facing. So yes, dharma, if it is not followed, would certainly at some point of time, we have as collectively as everybody, we need to actually face its repercussions. But some have their own conservative look at it. I won't deny that, but it need not be the only thing, because this is a global dharma. Some part of dharma is only related to Indians and part of dharma is only related to Indian society. What do we do for China, Russia, etc.? So there is some dharma which is called samanya dharma, which is applicable for everybody. That dharma, if we break also, we have this problem. See what I'm saying? So the answer is yes. There is far more to dharma. And because one leg of dharma is daya or compassion, and you have addressed it very beautifully. There are other three legs also. And there is something more to dharma. There is spiritual dharma, emotional dharma, layers. Yes. Thank you. How can a person become an optimist? How to handle guilt? Both are the same person. Okay. How can a person become an optimist? Okay. What we'll do is we will handle this tomorrow. How do I enhance my optimism using the same model of how do I use my buddhi to sort of strengthen the optimism part of it? How do we handle guilt also, we'll see tomorrow. Okay. Oh my God. When we are following our spiritual path, sometimes we get attached to things which are done for a good cause. This impacts our progress in spirituality, is it? How do we manage that? As you are managing so many organizational activities, how do you keep up your progress? Okay. Spiritual progress really means, how do I diminish, minimize my ego? And how do I enhance thoughts or practices of divinity in lieu of this diminishing ego, right? So sometimes when we get attached to things which are done for a good cause, attachment to anything is a problem except when it is divinity. See, there was this great Mahatma, he is the Mahatmas as never was, called Jnanananda Swami in Tirukovilur. He says, be charitable, but then kodayaliya iru, muttala irukada அப்படின்ற. Everything has a fine line. When we get a little bit attached to something, we lose sight of the purpose for which I am doing that action, right? So when you are doing things which are done for a good cause, the moment the thing becomes even more important from the cause, then what happens is we lose balance. And so I guess, because it's a little generic here, that understand the purpose. Why do we actually do karma? Why do we do seva? Krishna Prithiyartham. Not because it does good to society. We are all spiritual people. We do it Krishna Prithiyartham. World is not run by me and you. World is run by Bhagavan. I want to do my bit as a sign of gratitude. I am bestowed with something. I want to share it with people. I am bestowed with some intelligence. I want to share it with people. I am endowed with possibly a good speaking power or listening power. I want to share it with people. I don't run this world. If we start thinking that if not for me, what will happen to the cause? Then adogati. You see, rather we say, I will do my best because Krishna Arpanam, Krishna Prithiyartham. Then you won't be attached to that cause. You will be attached to Krishna only. you will be attached to divinity only. The moment you become Jadabharata, then, Jadabharata's mistake was not in protecting this little deer. He started thinking, this deer's life depends on me, which is not true. The deer, he brought it in, beautiful. He bathed it, beautiful. He fed it for 1 week, beautiful. Next step, he should have taken it and left it in the forest with a herd of deers and forgotten about it. The whole problem with attachment is we don't let go. And instead of doing things, we need to get the things done, whether it's by me or by others, doesn't matter. As long as things are done, I'm happy. As long as things are progressing, I'm happy. That's how personally I manage. If somebody is willing to do something, I am very happy to give that to them. Never be attached to any action. It's not worth it. Even if it is the greatest of all actions, not worth it. Be attached to Bhagavan. You see, then we won't go astray. And understand that the moment I think, but for me, how will this thing happen? That's what gives attachment. That's a sign of ego. And we are not going in the spiritual path if we are sort of feeding that ego, isn't it? So the reason, what I understood from the question is, how we manage so many organizational activities, it is done as Krishna. For me, talking like this or coming here or doing puja is no different from sitting with our Swamiji and chanting, because all are done for him. Intention is far more important than what work is, not execution, obviously. We have to do execution properly. Work is not the point. Why we do it is the point. Even if we sweep Namadwaar, if we do it for Krishna, we are doing the highest spiritual kainkariya. When we are chanting, if you are not chanting for Bhagavan, there is still punyam from chanting. But spiritual progress will be delayed. See, it will be there. It will be delayed. If you say, Krishna, for your preeti, I am chanting, then I'm not attached to chanting. I'm attached to Krishna Kripa, not my sadhana here. And that is the reason why if you want to progress spiritually, hold on to Krishna, hold on to Guru, not the actions which we think we are doing for them. And they are giving us an opportunity for us only. We are serving ourselves by serving Bhagavan. Why? Because we are progressing. As long as the ego is erased, we are progressing. And I don't keep up with my progress. That's my guru's job. I just do what is told to me. He has to take care of my progress, and he has taken more than even what I would have cared for. Next. I have a doubt related to Bhagavan. Okay. Existence of God and believing in his presence is controlled by mind, whereas intelligence portion or buddhi always questions this belief. Sometimes I feel we need to allow the mind to control our buddhi based on scenarios. Is it a wrong assumption? Well, I don't think so. If the buddhi agrees with the mind, it means that the mind and buddhi are pretty much clear. If the mind is saying something and buddhi is saying something else, either the buddhi does not have the background information, which is chitta, to understand. So you can use some, you can ask a mentor, or you can use a small thought wall to bounce your ideas off somebody to get convinced. But if you don't do anything without buddhi in line with the manas, it's always going to be a problem, because you are doing it with a conflict in the wrong direction. You see? Which means the buddhi is, and a doubt related to Bhagavan, Shraddha is also a function of buddhi. Buddhi decides that I shall postpone my conclusion based on the trust I have in my guru. That's what buddhi is doing, not mind. Shraddha is a buddhi's job. That's why the buddhi is telling, my mind is doubting, let it doubt. But the buddhi is saying, even though my mind is doubting, my guru has said there is somebody called Bhagavan. Otherwise, how will I know this? I can tell you, Viradamam Aimbodhangal, idhukku ஒரு counter argument கொடுக்க முடியாதுன்னு நானே கொடுப்பேன். So all those inferences cannot help us to convince ourselves there is Bhagavan, because Bhagavan can never be caught by logic. Bhagavan is beyond logic. Bhagavan is beyond Anumanam. Bhagavan is beyond Prataksham. Only one thing which gives us the strength to have faith in Bhagavan is we have a guru, we have this guru as Bhagavatam, or guru as Gita, or guru as a person. So buddhi is telling that, look here, that person is trustworthy. You see, pramanam ellame manasukku ellam buddhi da. This is called apta vakya pramanam. Apta vakya means my well-wisher. So somebody tells the child, as a child, the child does not like, say, broccoli. The mother says, you got to drink it, the soup. Only then it is good for your health. Even though the child thinks, I don't like it, it has faith and love for the mother, so it drinks it, so that it can come to realize its benefits tomorrow. You understand what I'm saying? If buddhi works with data from chitta, buddhi, I have not seen God. So I can never convince myself there is God with buddhi alone. I need to use buddhi to get inputs from a third source of pramana, which is not inference, which is not direct perception. It is from a source of authority which I have accepted because of other reasons. You see? Or I accept scriptures as the source of pramana. And scriptures gives us a little bit of logic. That is not inference. That is scripture's logic. You see? And because I have trust in the person, I trust his words also. And only then I can go in spiritual progress. You see? And whatever logic I use should be the logic of my guru or the logic of Shastras. My own fangled logic won't help me here. So, existence of God or believing in his presence is not controlled by the mind. It is controlled by buddhi. Because buddhi is saying, Shastra says that, Guru says that. So I'm going to postpone my judgment now. Let me do what he says and let me find out for myself. Because buddhi can only tell us, unless I see for myself, how can I have that experience? I have not seen for myself doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means that I have not raised myself to that existence. Let me try it. Buddhi, if it's open, can only be agnostic. It cannot be atheist. Atheist also concluded. Theist has also concluded. Agnostic is not concluded. So a neutral buddhi should hold on to agnostic principles because it has not seen yet, you see. And so the buddhi only catches a third source of pramana, source of knowledge, authority. It's called Aptavakya and Shastra. And so I don't think mind need to control your buddhi. In fact, mind cannot control the buddhi because mind does not know control at all. If something controls, it is buddhi only. Mind knows only to run here and there. Mind only wavers. If there is some control in us, if you call it mind, I am happy. But if something controls and determines, it's called buddhi. So what you say is what I am saying. You just put buddhi and mind here and there, no problem. It's only in the name now. The rose by some other name will smell as sweet. You see, if there is anything which is controlling and making me believe in God, whatever name you give it, I am with you. No problem. It's not a wrong assumption because assumption, there is nothing wrong. We'll find it out tomorrow. Are there, I don't know who is telling all this. I don't know the name of people asking these questions. So please don't take anything personally. And I'm not reading out the names also because we are together sitting and seeing the same thing. Your question is my question. My answer is your answer. Okay. If that makes sense, fine. Are there physical parts of the brain that control the mind versus intellect? I'm sure there are. Of course there are. If so, anatomically speaking, which parts of the brain contribute to the mind and which contribute to the intellect? I wish I was that postdoc research fellow in physiology. You see, I have no idea about it. But I did read that there are two parts of the brain and each part is dominant. And I also read it is not purely true. Only part of it is true. Brain is far more plastic than all this and all that stuff. But I'm sure there has to be some parts of the brain which contributes to the mind, or some parts of the brain activity, may not be a physical part, some activity of the brain which contributes to the mind because it's self-evident, it is there now. We look at, is it a deer? Oh, no, it is not, it's a boar. So we have both these. Which part of the brain, honestly, I don't know. But I'm sure in our group, there are people who are doctors, or there are people who are surgeons, or there are people who are psychiatrists, psychologists, and they can help that. And if you know, please send an answer. I will verify that with my buddhi. And if I'm convinced, I will certainly quote you and tell you tomorrow. So the question is, for people who want to give an answer, it's a discussion, please. It's not a one-way journey. The question is just, I would love to hear the answers. I would read the answers first with the names of people who have written the answers. So that disclaimers are taken here. Are there physical parts of the brain that control the mind versus intellect? And logically speaking, I would think certainly there are. If not physical parts, some physical activities in the brain. Maybe it's a circuit in the brain which sort of helps us to do the buddhi part, and some circuit in the brain, which pathways in a brain, which works as a mind. So I'm sure it is there. If there are physical parts, I would love to know. If so, anatomically speaking, which part of the brain contributes to the mind and which contribute to the intellect? I hope somebody can help me on that. And it's a very good question. I would certainly like to know the answer. I'm sure you would have tried Google and you're not happy with the answer. So I know that only genuine people can answer it now. That's it? Yes.
How do we build back the atrophy? Having not used it enough for so many years, what small things can we start doing to strengthen it?
What you do right now is the first step. There are 4 steps to any transformation. First one is called unconscious incompetence. Second step is conscious incompetence. Third step is conscious competence. Then effortless competence. The first you got yourself thinking, that's buddhi already working. That maybe I didn't use it in the past much, which I don't think is true. You're too humble to tell this. But if you think you could have used it more in the past, doesn't matter. The fact that you are aware that I need to use this capability to determine, capability to analyze, and the capability to balance my mind itself is buddhi working for you right now. I think if you can build on that, you can certainly start looking for more and more opportunity to build the muscles. You already started your gym. Your intellectual gym has started to function now. Very good. So all we need to do is, whenever you feel there is a conflict, don't dismiss hard thinking. Try to understand, try to reflect, try to discuss, try to understand. And that would certainly help you to flex the buddhi muscles. I'm honestly telling you, the moment you start thinking, am I exercising my intellect properly? Who is working here? The intellect part of it's already working, saying that maybe I need to use this more and more. You see? I think we'll have one more question from non-Seattle people, if all the Seattle questions are answered.
From non-Seattle. Is being driven by heart not an optimal way, as it tends to be impulsive? Or is it okay to let the positive passion lead us when venturing the less traveled paths?
Very good. Now, this very question is what you need to ask. Simple. You see, the very fact that is my inspiration enough for me to do meaningful activity, that question itself is intellect working to check whether my inspiration is enough, my impulse is enough, or maybe the impulse should be contained, etc. That itself is a check and balance. The moment you are aware that today I am not normal, today I am a little agitated or impulsive, that awareness is buddhi working, and it will take care of. Everybody has that intelligence. Only thing is we need to find ways and means to be aware, about self-aware about what I am doing right now. Aதாவது நிதானம் சொல்றோம் இல்லையா? I'm sure the person who asked this understands Tamil. Okay. நிதானம் அப்படிங்கிறது தவறதா இல்லையான்னு பாக்குறது தான் விஷயமே. Ram Swamiji told Ramayana, the whole problem or the whole boon of Ramayana came because நிதானம் இழந்துட்டார். 2 பேர். தசரதர் நிதானம் இழந்துட்டார். When you're too happy, don't commit anything to anybody. Don't promise anything to anybody. When you're too angry, don't try to give any feedback to anybody. You see, when you know you're impulsive, this is how you do check and balance. And I'll tell you another wonderful example of how buddhi missiles work for me. I had a boss from Bengal in my first company called Whirlpool. His name was Somnath Banerjee. If anybody knows Somnath Banerjee or the Whirlpool, please convey my thanks to him for this. He was my boss. He was a very senior person. I was a graduate engineer trained. That is what is called getting there. Some GET in you just get there. You are paid peanuts there, actually. But then we had a discussion. Those days we used to draw, engineering drawings in tracing sheets. And it's not CAD, CAD and all that stuff. I hope the questioner is not a millionaire who won't even understand what a tracing sheet is. We have to draw physically. So I drew a diagram and I was supposed to get his approval because the head approves. I went there at 4:55 p.m. You see, approval should not take more than 2 minutes. It's a straightforward drawing. You know what he said? He said, anyway, it's the end of the day. you bring this drawing tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. And he was the boss, I didn't question him. That day evening, we had to stay back for some calls. So I was going in his car. And I slowly asked him, sir, why did you say you wanted to see at 10? You know what he said? He said, generally, at the end of the day, I'm in the wrapping up mood. Okay, I need to go home. So many things are weighing on my head. At that point of time, I won't do justice to my signature in this approval because I won't apply my attention properly to this drawing. But I always found out that I am in my awareness best after a tea time at 9:45 in the mornings. And so I want to review drawings where I put my signature only at 10 o'clock. He is self-awareness. You see, he understands what are his, you remember the T, right? Time, energy, and attention. These are the three resources of our antakaranam. So depending on my self-awareness, the buddhi tells me, even though somebody is pressing you, do you need to sign right now? Don't do it because you are not at your attentive best right now. Do it when you're in your attentive best. That's why he was a very successful designer because he was self-aware. So here, when you say impulsiveness, itself shows that you have a problem. You see, the moment impulsiveness leads to an action, you have a problem, obviously, because you are telling me that. You are using the word impulsive now. So it means that certainly we need a check and balance within or outside. If somebody can help me or I myself can help me, to start with, help can come from outside where you discuss something. Right now, I feel like doing this. And if some person who you trust can sort of mellow you down and saying, can we have a cup of coffee and discuss this? Something like that. You understand this. And another lovely lesson, I got it from my friend in Bangalore. His name is Guru Murthy. And he told me a nice trick he does. Generally, we lived in the age of emails. I don't know now what they do. So whenever he was working with a supplier, whenever he gets a very nasty, responding, he has to nastily respond to a supplier because supplier failed him. He would never send that email. He says, I'll write the email and put it in maps. I take a 5-minute break, come back and review the email. And he said, I was surprised that 90% of the time I had to correct the email. Because in that moment, I want to really fire that person. But if I allow 5 minutes to pass, my entire perspective changes. And instead of getting into a irreparable damage of relationships, I've saved so many relationships. So remember this, when we know we are impulsive, it's always good to not commit or act in that moment. Yeah? And even after 5 minutes, if it sustains, then it's not impulsiveness, it's inspiration. You see, if it doesn't sustain for, say, 5 minutes, you would be happy that you didn't act, right? So I would think you can postpone. Learn, I don't believe in that, but you can take a deep breath and count up to 10. If it doesn't work, 20, 30, 40, till you become normal, and then decide. Because you will have a very different perspective. Huh? Yes. Yeah, last.
The question is a follow-up from the previous question.
Same person?
Yes, the one who asked the previous question, yes, about the parts of the brain that control.
Okay. Oh, all right.
How does one come to accept the third source of pramanam? How does one develop trust towards that new source of knowledge to tell us about that which we cannot experience?
Beautiful. It's a very good question. For that, we need one important trait called self-awareness and humility. What I mean is to understand the limitations of my own, capabilities. I know the limitations of my eye. I know it very well. I know my limitations of my ears. I know the limitations of my speech. For example, in opera, they just scream. Nah, I can't scream like that. If I scream, I have to go to a ENT surgeon. You see, so I know limitations of all my organs. I know limitation of my running. I can't bolt. I can only walk a bit. And people who bolt are called bolt only. Correct? You see, so I know the limitations of my organs of action. I know the limitations of my organs of perception. And the madri, slowly realize the limitations of my internal organs. Question, what do I really know? And then you will be surprised. I wish I had a second or third source of knowledge to that lacuna I have in my knowledge, you see. And then slowly it has to be inspired by a realized master only, obviously. And so once you read that, and when you understand how those, these commentaries of Bhagavad Gita are teasing your intellect, and it is taking you to the edge of understanding, then you'll have tremendous faith in that. If you want the intellectual way, I would suggest you start reading the commentaries of Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita by Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada. You can't imagine the stretching of intellect beyond that. You see, then you realize Periyavishayam. You see, we have not explored now. You can't say, I'll close my eyes and say, how do I believe that there is a world out? You have to open your eyes, try it out, figure it out, and explore. Haven't we explored? Were we born with all the knowledge about chemistry, biology? And we went in because many go in, we didn't even question why am I reading all this, you see. But the whole problem with religion is not many are going. So we have to question all that. So question your intention there. And certainly there are areas which are totally blind spots in our antakarana. And the simple, when you have a thought, do you know where the thought is coming from? When the thought is done, do you know where it is going? Have you ever asked that question? When you ask those questions, we'll realize that there is a lot of things I don't know. I don't know a lot of things about what I don't know. Then I start knowing what all I don't know. And then you start accepting, I want answers for that. And then comes the third pramana. For that, you have to do vichar. Ilana, third pramana will be just not very effective. Another Upanishad starts with a vicharam. A person is asking, Kene shitam patati ke shitam mana. First sloka. Kena Upanishad. A person did vichara. How is my eyes seeing? Eyes is just an aperture. And the whole world is seen by somebody. The world is insentient, but my consciousness and knowledge I get is very conscious. From where do I derive that consciousness? Who is that who is within me, or what is that which is within me, which is making me see? In the vicharam vara varaikum moonavathu pramanam won't work for it. In the vicharam vandurthuna moonavathu pramanam jilijilan irukum. But how many of us think hard? How many of us look at the sky to check if there is a cloud and come back? Or do we look at the sky, see the stars? How are they in that position? How come all these stars are there? How was it created in the first place? And scientists are telling me theories which I can't even understand, but they're very convinced because they have 5 equations. They're saying, when I see all that was Greek and actually Latin, epsilon, gamma, the whole theory. But they are very convinced. Adallam mattum the third pramanam dana ungalku theriyuma big bang theory equation puriyuma ungalku. As far as we are concerned, all the equations of all these great scientists are only third pramana for me. I don't understand. I just accept it. You see, when there is a vicharam, when we actually have this question about either inner nature or outer nature, then what happens is, I want a third source of knowledge. For that, the only way is inquire, be inquisitive, and be open, and ask. Within me also, there are so many unanswered questions. Where am I getting all these thoughts from? Have you ever wondered how this child is suddenly talking? It is no babbling, after 1 year, 2 years, what makes the child learn all this? If it is because of my multimedia, and if it is because of my way of teaching, then I should make even a cat speak. No, I'm not able to do that. There is something in this child from within which is also teaching. Appo enna within? Antaryamina enna? அந்த மாதிரி அப்படிலாம் பண்ணாதான் you'll enjoy sanat. ஏன்னா சனாதன தர்மா is a dharma for tattva vichara. Apart from bhakti, we enjoy all that. அது இருக்கட்டும் ஒரு பக்கம். தத்துவ விசாரம் அந்த மாதிரி யாராலையும் பண்ண முடியாது. And if you have the right questions, there are right answers. So that's why our Sanatana Dharma says, I won't tell you anything. You frame the right questions and come to me. I will give you the answers. Or I will help you see the answer. You see? And these are the vichar. And how word? Have you ever, I'm talking something, it's sound compression waves, and it is hitting your ears. You are able to understand what I am thinking. Miracle. How is it possible? The speaker doesn't understand, but I am understanding in the speaker, on the speaker. Dabba solla. The B சொல்றேன். I am actually speaking and you are actually listening, and what I am thinking, which is very abstract, you are able to think. You are asking something, I am answering. அந்த வேர்ட்ல இருந்து எப்படி மீனிங் வருது அதெல்லாம் யோசிச்சு பாருங்க. ஸ்போட்டம்னு பேரு. இதெல்லாம் தான் விசாரம். இதெல்லாம் இருந்தா நம்ம சனாதன தர்மம் வேற சொல்லக்கூடாது. தமிழ்ல சொல்றதுனால சேஃபா சொல்றேன். வேற எந்த தர்மத்திலயும் இதுக்கெல்லாம் பதில் கிடையாது. எல்லா கேள்விக்கும் பதில். பட் அதுக்கு பொறுமை வேணும், அதுக்கு ஹியூமிலிட்டி வேணும், வினயம் வேணும், அதுக்கு நிஜமான விசாரம் வேணும். சும்மா அப்படி ஜாலியா கேட்கக்கூடாது. நீங்க அப்படி கேட்கல, நான் சொல்றேன், கேட்டு பார்த்து எல்லாத்துக்கும் பதில். நம்ம கேட்காத கேள்வி எல்லாம் கேட்கறா, கேட்டுட்டு பதில். என்ன ஆச்சரியம், அழுகுதான் வருது அதெல்லாம் படிக்கும். அப்படி இருக்கு நம்ம மதம், அப்படி இருக்கு சாஸ்திரம்லாம். சாதாரண விஷயம், நாட்டு தெய்வம்னா விடுங்க, லௌகிக்க விஷயம். ஒரு சப்தத்தினால மீனிங் எப்படி வருது, பதில் இருக்கா? காக்னிசன்ஸ்னு எல்லாம் இங்கதான் போறாளே தவிர யாரும் இங்க யோசிக்கலையே, இல்லையா? அதெல்லாம் இருக்கு, அவ்வளவு விஷயம் இருக்கு. சும்மா இல்ல இதெல்லாம். இது ஃபெய்த் பேஸ்ட் ரிலிஜன்லாம் இல்ல, நம்ம இதுல எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் பேஸ்ட் அனுபவம். அது வரத்துக்கு பொறுமையாரு. எவ்வளவு பெரிய விஷயம் அது, எவ்வளவு கோடி ஜென்மா தாண்டி வந்திருக்கும். பட்டுன்னு உங்களுக்கு தரணுமா பிளேட்ல அப்படின்னு கேட்கிறார் மகரிஷி. ஒர்க் ஃபார் இட். என்ன சீப்பா ஆள் சேர்க்கிற மதமா அது? கிடையாது. அனுபவம் வேணும்னா வா, அழு, பரிபிரஷ்ன சேவையா, வினயமா கேளு, ஆசை இல்லையா போ அப்படின்றான். நம்மளாம் தான் எல்லாரும் நாமா சொல்லுவோம் பிச்சை எடுத்துட்டு இருக்கோம், இல்லையா? ஏன்னா அது எங்க குருவோடைய கிருபை. ரிஷிகள்லாம் கம்பீரம், வேதம்லாம் கம்பீரம், பண்ணா போ, பண்ணலன்னா நீதான் அடிபடுவேங்கிறது. பட்டு மகான்கள்லாம் கிருபை, நாமா சொல்றது கரி, நம்பலையோ கரி அப்படின்னு, அது கிருபை. பட் அதுதான் மதம் நினைச்சிடாதீங்க, எங்கேயோ இருக்கு. இந்த சைத்தன்ய மகாபிரபுல இருக்காரு, அவருக்கு தெரியாத விஷயம் கிடையாது. அத்தனையும் உள்ள வச்சு சும்மா அரே ராம ஏன் சொன்னார்னா நமக்கும் அதுதான் நமக்கு இப்ப பெரிய ஸ்ரேயச தருங்கிறதுனால இருக்காரு. அப்படிப்பட்ட விஷயம். அதனால அழகான கேள்வி, அதனால்தான் இழுத்து சொன்னேன் பதில். ஐ ஹோப் யூ அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் தமிழ். இன்னும் மோஸ்ட்லி தமிழ்ல தான் பதில் சொன்னேன். ஏன்னா அது விஷயம் அப்படிப்பட்ட விஷயம், இல்லையா? ஐம் சாரி ஃபார் பீப்புள் ஹூ டிட்ன்ட் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் திஸ். பட் விஷயம் அப்படிப்பட்ட விஷயம். அது நம்பினா நம்பாட்டி போகணும் சொல்லல. நம்பிக்கைங்கிறதுலாம் ரெண்டாவது பட்சம். விசாரணை இருக்கா, கேள்வி இருக்காவா, இதுதான். அதனால்தான் when own father in தைத்திரோபனிஷத், own son is coming and telling the father, அதிஹி பகவோ பிரம்மின்னு, ஒரு குழந்தை அப்பாவை கேட்கிற கேள்வி. அப்பா எனக்கு லாலிபாப் வாங்கி கொடு, வீடியோ கேம் வாங்கி கொடுன்னு கேட்கிற குழந்தை இல்லையா அந்த குழந்தை? அப்பா பிரம்மம்னா என்ன சொல்லி கொடு. ஏன்னா அப்பா உடனே டக்குன்னுலாம் கையில கொடுக்கல. என்ன தெரியுமா கேட்கிற? போய் தபஸ் பண்ணிட்டு வாடா போடான்ற சொந்த பையனை. அவன் 10 வருஷம் தபஸ் பண்ணிட்டு வரான். தபஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இதுதான் ஐ அண்டர்ஸ்டுட் அப்படின்றான். உடனே அவர் சொல்றாரு, இன்னும் 10 வருஷம் தபஸ் பண்ணிட்டு வா போ. விசாரம், தபஸ்னா என்ன? விசாரம் பண்ணிட்டு வா போ. விசாரம் பண்ணிட்டு வரான், அடுத்த லெவல் போறான். கடைசி லெவல்ல கேள்வியே வரல அவனுக்கு, ஏன்னா அவனுக்கு அனுபவம் வந்துச்சு. அதுதான் தைத்திரோபனிஷத், பிருகுவல்லி. அப்படித்தான் மதம். சாதாரண நினைச்சிடாதீங்க, நினைக்க மாட்டேன், இருந்தாலும் சொல்றேன். இந்த ஒரு மதத்தோட பெருமைனாலே கொஞ்சம் புத்தி குவைட் ஆயிடும் எனக்கு. மைண்ட் தான் ஜாஸ்தியா பேசுறது. பட் நம்ம மதம் தத்துவ விசாரம். One English lady came to meet our Swamiji, and then Swamiji was taking some time. He was talking to her, and finally she said the tattva vichara which is there in your Sanatana Dharma, apart from the grand festivals, grand puja, grand lovely, ella irukattum, tattva vicharam enga kadaikum appadina alara. Enna how much are we ready to explore it is our option. அதுக்கு மினிமம் யூ ஷுட் நோ சம்ஸ்கிருதம். இல்லைன்னா மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் இட் டிரான்ஸ்லேட்டட்லாம் போச்சு, பாதி போச்சு. அது சம்ஸ்கிருதம் தெரிஞ்சு படிச்சோன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. பிலாசபின்னு எடுத்தா பிலாசபி, லிட்ரேச்சர்னா லிட்ரேச்சர், அண்ட் நார்மல் காக்னிசன்ஸ், சாங்கிய தத்துவம். ஹவு டு யூ, ஒரு உதாரணம் சொல்றேன், see if you can grasp it. When you see an object, you know what Vedanta says, the mind becomes that object. That's why you think about the object in your head. Can you grasp around that? You see, our education. And they have gone to the extent of, when you see a pot in the floor, how are you seeing it in a layer? Or first level is the first year people study in Sanskrit college. After 3 years, they see the commentary of that first line. 4 இயர்ஸ்க்கு அப்புறம் கமெண்ட்ரியோட கமெண்ட்ரி. ஏன்னா இதுக்குதான் தர்க்க சாஸ்திரம்னு பேர். தர்க்க சங்கிரம்னு ஒண்ணு இருக்கு, அதுக்கு ஒரு கமெண்ட்ரி, அது கமெண்ட்ரி. ஏன்னா அவ்வளவு போயிட்டே இருக்கா. அப்படி இருக்கு நம்ம மதம். So if you truly want to explore, it's a lovely journey. பகவானை பார்க்கணும் போகட்டும் ஒரு பக்கம் இருக்கட்டும். But this intellectual feast அவ்வளவு இருக்கு. Not for even our spiritual விடுங்க, even for our intellect, அந்த மாதிரி எல்லாம் nothing can sharpen our intellect. நம்ம சங்கர பாஷையெல்லாம் எடுத்து பார்த்தா வச்சு அழுகதான் வருது. For 4 lines of Vedavyasa Bhagavan, our Swamiji has released a CD with 22 hours of pure explanation of Shankara Bhashyam of 4 lines. ஒரு லைன் எவ்வளவு பெருசு தெரியுமா? அதாத்தோ பிரம்ம ஜிக்ஞாசா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன், ஜென்மாதியசே யதஹா சாஸ்திர யோனித்வா, அவ்வளவுதான். தத்து சமன்வயாத் 4 லைன். எவ்வளவு வேர்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு அதுல? அதுக்கு எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷன் 22 hours. எல்லாம் பியூர்லி இன்டெலெக்சுவல், நோ ஃபெய்த் பேஸ்லாம் கிடையாது, இன்டெலெக்சுவல். 22 hours for these 4 lines. சதுசூத்ரின்னு இதெல்லாம் தான். ஸோ அது ரொம்ப வாஸ்டா இருந்தாலே ப்ராப்ளம். ஜென்ரலி நம்ம நாம பிரச்சாரம் ரொம்ப சின்ன சிட்டில ஒழுங்கா நடக்காது, ரொம்ப பெரிய சிட்டிலையும் ஒழுங்கா நடக்காது. பாப்புலேஷன் ஆப்டிமலா இருக்கணும், அப்பதான் நல்லா நாம பிரச்சாரம் நடக்குது. அந்த மாதிரி when there is infinite resources, everything is an ocean in our Sanatana Dharma. அதே என்னத்தை படிச்சு we are all very fortunate to be at least be born in a family which practices Sanatana Dharma. But what to explore is up to you and me. It's a big ocean. One lifetime is not enough. You see, just literature இருக்கு இல்லையா, சிமிலி மெட்டஃபர், அதுல எவ்வளவு சிமிலி இருக்கு தெரியுமா, எவ்வளவு மெட்டஃபர், 120 இருக்கு. அது பிரதாபருத்ரியம்னு ஒரு புக்கு போட்டு அள்ளி விட்டுருக்காரு. அது பார்த்தா ஏஸ்தட்டிக்ஸ் எல்லாம் அங்க தூக்கின்னு போகுது. And if you take grammar, myself and Boston Narayanji, we went to Harvard University just to have discussion with their professors. There was a German person sitting in that table, and we were discussing Bhagavatam, etc. That German professor was sitting there. He was wearing glasses. I was sitting in the center of the table. Narayanji was the other side. We could discern some tears coming from his eyes. He was having a book, you see. We asked him, what book is it? You seem to be very moved with the book. He said, I've never seen a more perfect book. And he gave it. Said, Ramayan Pata illa, grammar book. Indian Rein and Martin, Paniniyoda Ashtadhyay. He said, with 5,000 aphorisms, he has perfectly brought every possible combination in a language. Nobody can come close to that. Now, aware, looking at the genius of Panini, who wrote grammar aphorism, he is crying. He actually cried. And myself and Narayanji were there. அதுதான் விஷயம். You see, அப்படிப்பட்ட ஒரு சனாதன தர்மம் போய் சொல்லுமா? அவசியமே இல்லை அவளுக்கு. You see, and that is the reason why it's up to you and me to explore. At least translation படிக்கலாம். You see, there is a site called archive.org. அதுல எல்லா வேலையும், you see, everything is there. And there are 20 volumes of Indian philosophical studies. Those somebody has written about 50 years back, which is totally about 20,000 pages. What all I talked about is in detail there. And what brings meaning in a sentence. Sentence becomes a sentence எப்போ அவ்வளவு ரிசர்ச் இருக்கு. சம்ஸ்கிருதம் அதே மாதிரி, தமிழ் அதே மாதிரி, தெலுங்கு அதே மாதிரி, கன்னடா அதே மாதிரி, மலையாளம் அதே மாதிரி, ஹிந்தி, இந்த மாதிரி எவ்வளவு ஓஷன்ஸ். So India is not the land of 3 oceans. It is the land of oceans of oceans. You see, and that is the beauty. நீங்க கேட்ட கேள்வி ரொம்ப அழகான கேள்வி. அதனாலதான் அதுக்கு I thought I will explain you all that. We are only scratching the surface. But this itself gives us tremendous idea about what to do here. And that is the beauty. Bhakti rasana அதுக்கு குமிச்சிருக்காங்க. பக்தினா என்ன, அந்த பக்தி எப்படி வரும், அதுக்கெல்லாம் ஸ்டெப்ஸ் எல்லாம் பிரமாணம். So when you inquire, when you truly have the spirit of inquire, Ramana is waiting for. If you don't even have the question, where would we search for an answer? So ask the right questions and then inquire with humility. The journey itself will be an intellectual feast. You see, there were many Tamil people, like this person who is a poet. He wanted to make fun of Krishna. He was the Dravidan person. So he wanted to write a funny commentary on Bhagavad Gita. You see, He started reading Gita. He became a dasa of Krishna. You see. And then he wrote his own commentary of Bhagavad Gita. He wrote very openly, I did that to critic Gita. I did that to critic Gita, to make fun of Gita. I realized how foolish I was. You see. That is the beauty. And like that, Bhagavatam is an ocean. Adile commentaries, Ramayanam is an ocean. Ramayanatila dharmama or bhashyam. Philosophically or bhashyam. Bhakti ko or bhashyam. Saranagatin or bhashyam. Dharmatka or bhashyam. With one Ramayana. Perfect. It gives space to everything. You see. That is the beauty of Sanatana. I can go on and on. But then there are some time zones which is time for them to go to sleep. So we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll address about the states of mind which if it's unchecked by buddhi, can lead us a little down. And we'll also talk about how do we handle. There was something about guilt, isn't it? And what was the second question to that? Optimism. Yes, we'll talk about it. Sadgurunatha Maharaj ki